Before we dive into the story, tell us where you're watching from in the comments below. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more heart-touching tales. Wishing you a beautiful day now. Sit back and enjoy the story. Asterisk, the elevator was broken naturally. Anna Bennett stared at the handwritten out-of-order sign taped to the brass doors of the Ashworth Grand Hotel. Her phone dead in her purse, her best friend's wedding ceremony starting 6 floors above. Her head, she could already hear the faint strains of violin music drifting down through the marble atrium. Perfect, she whispered, gathering the flowing ivory fabric of her bridesmaid dress in both hands. The hotel's grand staircase curved upward like a golden spiral, each step gleaming under the afternoon light streaming through stained glass windows. Her heels clicked against marble as she began to climb, cursing the taxi that had broken down on the Golden Gate Bridge, cursing her alarm clock that hadn't gone off, cursing everything that had led to this moment. By the 3rd floor, her carefully styled curls were escaping their pins. By the 5th, her breathing had turned shallow and desperate. She could hear voices above now, the officiant's deep baritone carrying through the halls. Natalie would be standing at the altar in her grandmother's lace dress, probably wondering where her maid of honor had vanished to. Anna rounded the final corner at a near sprint, her dress billowing behind her like cream-colored smoke. She wasn't watching where she was going. She was watching the ornate ceiling, trying to gauge how much farther she had to climb, when her body slammed into something. Solid and immovable. Not something. Someone. The impact sent her stumbling backward, her heel catching on the marble step. Time seemed to stretch and slow as she felt herself falling, her arms windmilling helplessly. Then strong hands caught her waist, steadying her with surprising gentleness, pulling her forward until she was pressed against a chest that smelled of sandalwood and something darker, something that made her breath catch for reasons that had nothing to do with her frantic climb. Up. The man holding her had the kind of face that belonged in marble galleries, all sharp angles and classical proportions. Her dark hair, steel-gray eyes that seemed to see straight through her, a mouth that looked like it rarely smiled but might be. Devastating when it did. His suit was charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, expensive in a way that whispered rather than shouted. "I'm so sorry," Anna managed, stepping back quickly, her cheeks burning. Wasn't looking where I was going. "I'm late for a wedding, and the elevator was broken, and Are you hurt?" His voice was low, controlled, with an undertone that made her stomach flutter. No, shook her head, probably too quickly. No, I'm fine, just mortified. Something shifted in his expression, almost like amusement. "You're going to the Morrison Chun wedding?" Anna blinked. "You know about it? I'm Julian West, David's business partner." The name hit her like cold water. Julian West. Even someone like Anna, who spent her days designing book covers and avoided financial news, knew that name. West Capital, billions in assets. The kind of man who appeared on magazine covers with headlines about reshaping entire industries. "Oh God," she breathed. "I just body slammed a billionaire." This time he did smile, just slightly, and it transformed his entire face. "I've survived worse." Anna became acutely aware that they were still standing very close, that his hands had lingered on her waist longer than strictly necessary, that he was looking at her with an intensity that made her feel like she was the only person in the entire hotel. "I should go," she said, but she didn't move. "Anna Bennett," he said quietly. She froze. "How do you know my name?" "Natalie mentioned her maid of honor was an artist. Said you designed the wedding invitations." His eyes moved over her face, slowly memorizing details. "She didn't mention you were beautiful." The words hung in the air between them like a challenge. Anna felt something shift in her chest, something dangerous and electric. This was insane. She didn't even know this man. But the way he was looking at her like she was a puzzle he desperately wanted to solve made her forget about everything. Else, the sound of applause from above broke the spell. "The ceremony," Anna whispered. Julian stepped aside, but his eyes never left her face. "Go, I'll see you inside." Anna climbed the remaining steps on unsteady legs, her heart hammering against her ribs. When she reached the ceremony hall, she slipped through the doors just as Natalie was speaking her vows. her voice carrying clearly through the hushed space. Anna found a seat in the back row, trying to catch her breath, trying to focus on her best friend's radiant face. But her eyes kept drifting to the front of the ceremony, where Julian West sat in the second row, his profile sharp against the golden light streaming through tall windows. And when he turned slightly, just enough to catch her eye, the small smile he gave her felt like a secret they were already sharing. Anna forced herself to look forward, to focus on Natalie's happiness, but she could feel Julian's presence like heat against her skin. Something had started on that staircase, something that felt bigger than a chance encounter between strangers, something that felt like the beginning of everything changing. The reception hall glowed like the inside of a jewel box, all golden light and crystal reflections. Anna stood near the bar, nursing a glass of champagne she hadn't touched, watching Natalie float across the dance floor in David's arms, her best friend looked incandescent with happiness, her grandmother's pearls catching the light as she laughed at something her new husband whispered in her ear. Anna smiled, genuinely happy for Natalie, but the feeling was complicated by an awareness that prickled along her spine. Julian West was somewhere in this room, and she could feel his presence like electricity in the air. She'd managed to avoid him during the cocktail hour, staying busy with her maid of honor duties, helping Natalie with her dress, making sure the photographer got all the shots on her list. But now, with dinner finished and the formal events winding down, she found herself scanning the crowd despite her better judgment, hiding. The voice came from directly behind her, low and amused. Anna turned to find Julian standing close enough that she could smell his cologne again, that intoxicating blend of sandalwood and something uniquely him. "I don't hide," she said, then immediately felt foolish, because that was obviously exactly what she'd been doing. Julian's smile was knowing. Of course not. It just happened to choose the corner of the room with the best strategic view of all. Exits. Anna felt heat rise in her cheeks. "I was watching Natalie dance, so was I." He gestured toward the dance floor where the bride and groom swayed together, lost in their own world. "They look happy." "They are. David's good for her." Anna took a sip of champagne, using it as an excuse to study Julian's profile. In the soft lighting, he looked less intimidating than he had on the staircase, but no less striking. "How long? Have you known him? Since college? Harvard Business School?" Julian turned to face her fully, and Anna felt that same electric jolt she'd experienced during their collision. "He's mentioned Natalie constantly for the past 2 years. According to him, she has this best friend who's an incredible artist, impossibly stubborn, and tends to work herself to exhaustion on projects she believes in." Anna's eyebrows rose. "He talks about me?" "Constantly, though he left out some important details. Such as..." Julian's eyes moved over her face slowly, and Anna felt her pulse quicken. "Such as the fact that you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen." The words hit her like a physical force. Anna stared at him, her champagne glass frozen halfway to her lips. Men had called her beautiful before, but never like this, never with such quiet certainty. Never in a way that made her feel like the word had been redefined entirely. "You don't know me," she managed. "No," he agreed. "But I'd like to." The band shifted into a slower song, something soft and romantic that made couples drift closer together on the dance floor. Julian extended his hand to her, palm up, and Anna stared at it like it might burn her. "Dance with me." It wasn't really a question. Anna looked around the reception, suddenly hyper-aware of the other guests, of the way some of them were already watching Julian with recognition and interest. Dancing with him would make her visible in a way she wasn't sure she was ready for. "I don't think that's a good idea," she said. "Why not?" "Because you're dangerous," she thought. "Because you make me feel things I don't understand. Because I have the distinct feeling that dancing with you would be the kind of mistake I'd never recover from." "Because we just met," she said instead. Julian stepped closer, and Anna's breath caught. Sometimes that's the best time. Before she could think of another excuse, he took the champagne glass from her hand and set it on a nearby table. Then, his fingers were intertwining with hers, warm and sure, and he was leading her toward the dance floor. The other dancers seemed to part around them naturally, creating space as Julian pulled Anna into his arms. His hand settled on the small of her back, and she could feel the heat of his palm through the thin fabric of her dress. Her free hand found his shoulder, and she was struck by how solid he felt, how steady. They moved together with surprising ease, as if they'd done this 1,000 times before. Julian was a good dancer, confident and smooth, leading her through the steps without making her feel clumsy or uncertain. There was something in the way their bodies seemed to fit together in the way she could anticipate his movements almost before he made them. "You're good at this," Anna said, trying to keep her voice light. "Boarding school," Julian replied. "Mandatory ballroom dancing lessons every Friday afternoon for 6 years." Anna laughed, the sound surprising her. "That sounds terrible," it was, though I'm finding myself grateful for it now. Their eyes met and held, and Anna felt that dangerous flutter in her chest again. Up close she could see flecks of green. In his gray eyes could count the dark lashes that framed them. His face was even more striking in the soft light, all sharp cheekbones and strong jaw, but it was his mouth that held her attention. She found herself wondering what it would feel like to kiss him. The thought shocked her. She didn't kiss strangers. Didn't fall for men she'd just met. Didn't let herself get swept up in romantic fantasies. She was practical, sensible Anna Bennett, who designed book covers and lived in a studio apartment and had sworn off complications after her last relationship disaster. But Julian West didn't feel like a stranger. It felt like recognition, like coming home to a place she'd never been before. "What are you thinking?" he asked softly. Anna realized she'd been staring at his mouth. He'd flooded her cheeks, but she forced herself to meet his eyes. "That this is crazy. What is this us? Whatever this is," she gestured vaguely between them. "We collided on a staircase 3 hours ago, and now I'm dancing with you like we've known each other for years." Julian's hand tightened slightly, on her back, pulling her fractionally closer. "And that scares you?" "Terrifies me," Anna admitted. "Good," Julian murmured, his voice dropping to that low register that made her stomach flip. It should. The song ended, but neither of them moved to separate. They stood frozen in each other's arms, the noise of the reception fading into background. Static. Anna was acutely aware of every point where their bodies touched, of the way Julian's thumb was tracing small circles against her spine, of how easy it would be to rise up on her toes and close the distance between their mouths. "Anna," Natalie's voice cut through the moment like a knife.
"There you are."
And a jerk back from Julian, her face burning as Natalie approached with David in tow, both of them glowing with champagne and happiness. "Julian." David clapped his business partner on the shoulder. "I see you've met my wife's better half. We've been introduced," Julian said smoothly, but his eyes remained on Anna's face. Natalie looked between them with undisguised curiosity. "You two look like you were having an intense conversation." "Just getting acquainted," Anna managed, hoping her voice sounded steadier than she felt. But Natalie knew her too well, and Anna could see the wheels turning in her best friend's mind. Natalie's eyes narrowed slightly, taking in Anna's flushed cheeks and the way Julian was still standing close enough to touch her. "Well, don't let us interrupt," Natalie said with a smile that was pure mischief. "Anna, I'll catch up with you later. Hey, we have so much to talk about." As the newlyweds drifted away, Anna realized she was alone with Julian again, the air between them charged with unfinished business. The reception continued around them, but it felt distant and unreal. "I should go," Anna said, though she made no move to leave. "Should you?" Julian asked. "Or do you want to?" Anna looked up at him, this man who had appeared in her life like a force of nature, who made her question everything she thought she knew about herself. The smart thing would be to walk away, to chalk this up to wedding magic and champagne and forget it ever happened. But as Julian's fingers brushed against hers, so lightly she might have imagined it, Anna realized she was tired of always doing the smart thing. "No," she whispered, "I don't want to go." Julian's smile was slow and devastating. "Then stay." The hotel's rooftop garden was a secret world suspended above the city. Anna followed Julian through glass doors onto a terrace, where fairy lights twinkled between potted olive trees and the San Francisco skyline glittered in the distance. The sounds of the reception faded to a gentle hum below them, replaced by the soft whisper of night wind and the distant hum of traffic. "How did you know this was up here?" Anna asked, wrapping her arms around herself as the cool air raised, goosebumps on her bare shoulders. I own the hotel. Anna stopped walking. I'm sorry, what? Julian turned to face her, his expression unreadable in the soft lighting. The Ashworth Grand. I bought it 2 years ago. It was hemorrhaging money, bad management, but the bones were good. I had it renovated. Anna stared at him, trying to process this information. You own the hotel where your friend is having his wedding. I may have influenced David's choice of venue, Julian admitted, and there was something almost sheepish in his tone. Oh my God, Anna laughed, but it came out shaky. You're like a romantic comedy millionaire. You also have a private jet and a helicopter? Actually, yes to both. Anna's laughter died. The gap between their worlds felt suddenly, impossibly vast. Julian West lived in a universe of private jets and hotel ownership, of influence and power that she could barely comprehend. She designed book covers in a cramped studio apartment and took the bus to work. Julian stepped closer, his voice gentle. What are you thinking? I'm thinking this is insane, she said, gesturing between them. I'm thinking you'd probably date supermodels and senators' daughters. And I'm thinking, I have no idea what I'm doing here with you. Julian was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. Then he shrugged out of his suit jacket and draped it around her shoulders. The fabric was warm from his body and smelled like him, and Anna had to resist the urge to pull it closer. I don't date anyone, he said simply. Anna frowned. What do you mean? I mean, I don't date. Haven't been in a relationship in 3 years. I don't do romantic dinners or weekend getaways or meeting each other's friends. Julian moved to the stone railing, looking out over the city lights. My life is work. Board meetings and acquisition deals and 18-hour days. I'm good at it, and it keeps me busy, and it's enough. That sounds lonely. Julian's laugh was hollow. It's practical. Relationships are complicated. They require time and attention and emotional availability, and I don't have any of those things to spare. Anna joined him at the railing, studying his profile. Then why are you up here with me? Julian was quiet for so long that Anna wondered if he was going to answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Because when you ran into me on those stairs, something changed, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since. He turned to look at her, and Anna saw something vulnerable in his expression that made her chest tighten. I don't know what this is, Anna. I just know I don't want it to end when this wedding is over. The honesty in his voice knocked the breath from her lungs. Anna had been expecting smooth lines and practiced charm, the kind of polished seduction she imagined billionaires used on women. Instead, Julian sounded uncertain, almost lost, and somehow that made him more dangerous, not less. Julian, she began, but he shook his head. Let me finish. I know this is crazy. I know we just met. I know I probably seem like some entitled rich guy who thinks he can have whatever he wants. Julian turned to face her fully, and Anna could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands gripped the stone railing. But I've never felt anything like what I felt when I caught you on those stairs. I've never met anyone who looked at me the way you do. How do I look at you? Like I'm just a man. Not a net worth or a business opportunity or a step up some social ladder. Just Julian. His voice was rough now, raw with something that sounded almost like pain. Do you know how rare that is? Anna's heart clenched. She could see it now, the isolation that wealth and power had built around him, the way people must approach him with agendas and calculations instead of genuine interest. The loneliness he'd dismissed so casually suddenly made perfect sense. Julian, she said softly, reaching out to touch his arm. He flinched slightly at the contact, as if he wasn't used to gentle touches, and Anna's heart broke a little more. I need you to know something, Julian continued, about why I really bought this hotel. Anna frowned. What do you mean? Julian pulled out his phone, scrolling through photos until he found what he was looking for. He handed it to Anna, and she found herself staring at a picture from Natalie's engagement party 6 months ago. She was in the background, laughing at something, her hair catching the light, completely unaware she was being photographed. David sent me this picture when he was telling me about the party, Julian said quietly. He was going on about how happy Natalie was, how perfect the venue was, how her best friend had organized everything. And there you were in the background, and I couldn't stop looking at you. Anna's hands were shaking as she stared at the photo. You bought a hotel because of a picture of me? I bought a hotel because I wanted to meet the woman in that picture. And I knew David and Natalie would eventually get married, and I figured their wedding would be the perfect opportunity. Julian ran a hand through his hair, messing up the perfect styling. God, saying it out loud makes me sound like a stalker. You are a stalker, Anna breathed, but there was no accusation in her voice. She was too shocked, too overwhelmed by the implications of what he was telling her. I know how it sounds. I know it's crazy. I've never done anything like this before, I swear. But something about you in that picture. The way you were laughing, the way you looked so alive and genuine. And beautiful, I couldn't get you out of my head. Anna looked up at him, this powerful man who had orchestrated an entire hotel purchase just for the chance to meet her, and felt something shift in her chest. It should have been terrifying. It should have sent her running. Instead, it felt like the most romantic thing anyone had ever done for her. So when I ran into you on the stairs, she said slowly, it wasn't an accident. I was waiting. I'd been watching for you to arrive. Julian's cheeks actually colored slightly, though I'll admit, your dramatic entrance wasn't what I'd planned for. Anna stared at him, trying to process everything. The collision that had felt so fateful, so perfectly timed, had been orchestrated. Julian had been watching for her, waiting for her, planning this meeting for months. It should have felt manipulative. Instead, it felt like destiny. Say something, Julian said quietly. Please. Anna looked down at the photo again, at her own laughing face frozen in time, and realized that Julian had fallen for a version of her that she'd forgotten existed. The woman in that picture looked carefree and joyful, unguarded in a way Anna hadn't felt in years. I haven't laughed like that in months, she admitted. What changed? Anna handed his phone back, their fingers brushing in the exchange. Life, work stress. A bad breakup that left me feeling like maybe I wasn't good at this whole relationship. She shrugged, trying to keep her voice light. I've been playing it safe ever since. And how's that working out for you? Anna looked up at him, at this man who had turned her carefully ordered world upside down in the span of a few hours, and felt a laugh bubble up from somewhere deep in her chest. Terribly, she admitted. Absolutely terribly. Julian smiled. Then, the first truly unguarded expression she'd seen from him. And Anna felt something inside her chest crack open like an egg. Good, he said, stepping closer, because I have a proposition for you. Anna's pulse quickened. What kind of proposition? Give me a week, Julian said. 7 days to show you that what's happening between us is real. No pressure, no expectations. Beyond that, just a week to see where this goes. Anna stared at him, her heart hammering against her ribs. A week with Julian West would change everything. She could feel it, the way this moment balanced on a knife's edge between her old life and something entirely new. And if I say no, expression grew serious. Then I'll respect that. You'll never hear from me again. But Anna, he stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body. I really hope you don't say no. Anna looked out over the city lights, thinking about her small apartment, her predictable routine, the careful walls she'd built around her heart. Then she looked back at Julian, at the hope and vulnerability written across his face, and realized she was tired of playing it safe. 1 week, she whispered. Julian's smile was radiant. 1 week. And as he leaned down to kiss her for the first time, soft and careful and full of promise, Anna couldn't help but think that sometimes the most dangerous choices were also the most necessary ones. 5 days later, Anna stood in Julian's penthouse apartment, staring at a newspaper article that made her stomach churn. The headline blazed across the business section in bold type. West Capital CEO's mystery woman. Who is Anna Bennett? Below it was a photo of them leaving a restaurant the night before, her hand in his, both of them laughing at something he'd whispered in her ear. She looked happy in the picture, genuinely radiant in a way that made her barely recognize herself. But the article beneath the photo was brutal. Sources close to West described Bennett as a struggling artist with no significant assets or family connections. Questions arise about her motivations for pursuing one of San Francisco's most eligible bachelors. Anna. Julian's voice came from behind her, tight with anger. I can explain. She turned to face him, the newspaper crumpling in her grip. Explain what? That your world comes with paparazzi and gossip columnists who think I'm a gold digger. The photo was taken without our knowledge. Someone at the restaurant must have tipped them off. Julian moved toward her, but Anna stepped back. That's not the point, Julian. The point is that this is your life. Is this what dating you means? She gestured at the newspaper. Having strangers analyze my bank account and question my character. Based on a single photograph, Julian's jaw tightened. Can make them retract the story. One phone call and what? We'll just find something else to write about. Anna laughed, but there was no humor in it. This is just the beginning. Isn't it? If we keep seeing each other, there will be more articles, more photos, more people picking apart everything about me to see if I'm worthy of being with you. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken truths. Julian's penthouse suddenly felt enormous. All glass and steel and expensive furniture that reminded Anna of exactly how different their worlds were. I never wanted this for you, Julian, said quietly. She knew it was possible. You knew this could happen, and you asked me for a week anyway. Julian ran a hand through his hair, and Anna could see the conflict playing out across his face. I hoped it wouldn't. Thought maybe if we kept things low-key. There is no low-key when you're Julian West, Anna interrupted. Everything you do is news. Everyone you date becomes public property. She set the newspaper down on his kitchen counter, her hands shaking slightly. I can't live like this. Anna, please, don't let them win. Don't let some gossip columnist destroy what we've built this week. What they'd built. Anna's heart clenched as she thought about the past 5 days, each one more perfect than the last. Julian had been everything she'd never known she wanted. Attentive without being suffocating, thoughtful in ways that took her breath away, funny and charming, and devastatingly attractive. He'd taken her to his favorite bookstore. It's a tiny shop in North Beach where the owner had known him for years and treated him like family. He'd cooked for her in this very kitchen, admitting with endearing embarrassment that he'd hired a chef to teach him her favorite dish. He'd listened to her talk about her work with genuine interest, asking questions that showed he understood not just what she did, but why it mattered to her. And the way he'd kissed her, soft and desperate and full of wonder, as if he couldn't quite believe she was real. The way he'd held her last night as they watched the sunset from his terrace. His arms around her waist, his chin resting on her shoulder as he pointed out landmarks in the city below. She was falling in love with him, had already fallen, if she was being honest with herself, which made this moment even more devastating. It's not about winning or losing, Anna said, her voice barely above a whisper. It's about the kind of life I want to live. I'm not built for this, Julian. I don't want photographers following me to work or reporters calling my friends for quotes about what I was like in college. I don't want to have to wonder if every person I meet is genuine or if they just want access to you through me. Julian's face had gone pale. So what are you saying? Anna closed her eyes, feeling tears threaten. I'm saying that maybe we're too different. Maybe this was always going to be impossible. Oh? Julian's voice was sharp, almost desperate. Anna, no. What we have is real. What I feel for you is real. Don't let fear destroy that. It's not fear, Anna said, opening her eyes to meet his. It's reality. Your reality. And I don't fit into it. Julian stared at her for a long moment, and Anna could see something breaking behind his eyes. When he spoke again, his voice was carefully controlled, all emotion locked away. What if I could change it? What if I could protect you from all of this? How we could be more discreet. Private dinners instead of restaurants. My driver instead of walking places where photographers might see us. You could what? Hide me? Anna's voice cracked. Keep me like a secret because you're ashamed of what people might think. That's not what I meant, isn't it? Anna wiped at her eyes, hating that she was crying but unable to stop. Julian, I've spent my whole life being enough. Just enough talent to make a living as an artist. Just enough charm to maintain friendships. Just enough ambition to survive in a competitive field. I'm not extraordinary. I'm not special enough to justify this kind of scrutiny, and I'm certainly not strong enough to handle it. You're wrong. Julian's voice was fierce now, all pretense of control abandoned. You're extraordinary. You're the most extraordinary person I've ever met. You make me laugh when I haven't found anything genuinely funny in years. You listen when I talk about work, like you actually care about boring acquisition deals and profit margins. You look at me like I'm just a man instead of a net worth. And do you have any idea how precious that is? Anna felt her resolve wavering. The raw emotion in Julian's voice, the vulnerability he was showing her, made her want to throw caution to the wind and damn the consequences. When I'm with you, I remember who I used to be, before the money and the pressure and the constant performance, Julian continued. You make me want to be better, to be the kind of man who deserves someone like you. Don't walk away from that. Don't walk away from us. Anna looked at him, this powerful man who was practically begging her to stay, and felt her heart shatter, because she could see their future stretching out ahead of them. More articles, more photographs, more scrutiny until the pressure crushed whatever fragile thing they'd built between them. She could see herself becoming bitter and paranoid, wondering if Julian was ashamed of her, if he resented the complications she brought to his perfectly ordered life. I love you, she whispered, the words falling from her lips like broken glass. Julian's face transformed, hope blazing in his eyes. Anna, but love isn't enough, she continued, hating herself for the way his expression crumbled. Love doesn't make the photographers disappear or the gossip columns stop running. Love doesn't bridge the gap between your world and mine. Moved toward the door, her legs feeling like lead. Julian caught her arm gently, his touch burning through the fabric of her sleeve. Anna, please, don't do this. We can figure it out together. Anna looked back at him one last time, memorizing the curve of his mouth, the way his hair fell across his forehead, the desperation in his gray eyes. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. And then she was gone, leaving Julian standing, alone in his perfect penthouse, surrounded by all the trappings of success that suddenly felt like nothing more than expensive consolation prizes. The elevator ride down felt endless. Anna stared at her reflection in the polished metal doors, her mascara smudged, her hair disheveled, her heart breaking with every floor that passed. She looked like a woman who had just walked away from the love of her life, which, she realized with devastating clarity, was exactly what she was. 3 weeks later, Anna was still trying to convince herself she'd made the right decision. She sat in her studio apartment, surrounded by half-finished book cover designs, forcing herself to focus on work instead of checking her phone for the 100th time that day. Julian hadn't called since she'd left his penthouse. He'd respected her decision, just as he'd promised he would, which somehow made everything worse. The knock on her door came at 7 in the evening, soft but insistent. Anna's heart jumped into her throat. She hadn't been expecting anyone, and the part of her that never stopped hoping whispered that maybe, possibly, it could be Julian instead. She opened the door to find Natalie standing in the hallway, arms crossed, wearing the expression that had terrified their college professors. We need to talk, Natalie said, pushing past Anna into the apartment. Hello to you too, Anna muttered, closing the door. How was the honeymoon? Wonderful, magical, life-changing. Natalie turned to face her, eyes blazing with the righteous fury of a best friend on a mission. Now stop deflecting and tell me why you're sitting in this apartment looking like you haven't slept in weeks. While Julian West is apparently selling his company, Anna's blood turned to ice. How what? David told me this morning. Julian's putting West Capital up for sale. It's the whole thing. 20 years of work, and he's just walking away. Natalie moved closer, her voice softening slightly. What happened, Anna? What really happened? Anna sank onto her couch, suddenly exhausted. She'd been carrying the weight of her decision alone. For 3 weeks, telling herself it was for the best, that she was protecting both of them from an impossible situation. But hearing that Julian was dismantling his life's work made her feel sick. The press found out about us, Anna said quietly. There was an article calling me a gold digger, questioning my motives. I realized that dating him would mean living. Under a microscope forever, and I couldn't handle that. Natalie was quiet for a long moment. Then she sat down beside Anna, her expression gentling. "You know what David told me about Julian?" she said. "He said Julian spent his entire adult life building walls. Work was his fortress. Money was his armor, and he never let anyone get close enough to hurt him. Then you came along and knocked down every single wall in the span of 1 week." Anna's throat tightened. "That doesn't change the reality of the situation." "What reality?" "That people might write mean articles about you? You might have your picture taken without permission?" Natalie's voice was incredulous. "Anna, you're talking about giving up the love of your life because some gossip columnist might be catty. It's not that simple, isn't it?" Natalie turned to face her fully. "You're scared. I get it. Love is terrifying, especially when it's this big and unexpected. But you're using the media attention as an excuse to run away before he can hurt you." The words hit Anna like a physical blow because they were true. Beneath all her rational concerns about privacy and media scrutiny was the simple, devastating fear that Julian would eventually realize she wasn't worth the complications she brought to his life. "What if it doesn't work?" Anna whispered. "If we try and it falls apart anyway? What if he gets tired of dealing with the drama of being with someone like me?" "What if it does work?" Natalie countered. "What if you're throwing away your chance at happiness because you're too scared to fight for it?" Anna buried her face in her hands. "He's selling his company, Nat. He's giving up everything he worked for. Maybe because without you, none of it matters to him anymore." The possibility hung in the air between them, devastating in its implications. Anna had walked away to protect them both, but what if she'd only succeeded in destroying the thing she'd been trying to save? "I don't know how to fix this," Anna admitted. Natalie smiled, the expression sharp with mischief. "Lucky for you, I do." 2 hours later, Anna stood outside the Ashworth Grand Hotel, her heart hammering against her ribs. Natalie had made some calls, pulled some strings, and somehow arranged for Anna to have access to the rooftop garden, where she and Julian had shared their first kiss. He was already there when she arrived, standing at the stone railing, looking out over the city lights. He'd lost weight, she realized with a pang of guilt. His suit hung a little looser, and there were shadows under his eyes that hadn't been there before. "Julian," she said softly. He turned, and the expression that crossed his face nearly undid her. Hope, wariness, and something that looked almost like pain flickered in his gray eyes before he managed to school his features into neutrality. "Anna, I didn't expect to see you here. I heard you're selling the company." Julian's laugh was hollow. "David has a big mouth. Why?" Anna stepped closer, searching his face. "Julian, why are you giving up everything you built?" He was quiet for a long moment, his hands gripping the railing so tightly his knuckles were white. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Because it doesn't mean anything without you. None of it means anything without you." Anna's breath caught. "Julian, I know you made your choice," he continued, still looking out over the city. "I know you think we're too different, that my world is too complicated for you, and maybe you're right. Maybe I'm selfish for wanting you anyway. You're not selfish." Julian turned to look at her then, and Anna saw her own heartbreak reflected. In his eyes? Then why does it feel like I'm drowning without you? Why does every board meeting and acquisition deal feel like I'm just going through the motions of someone else's life? Anna felt tears prick at her eyes. "Because you're not just going through the motions. You're one of the most brilliant businessmen in the country. You can't throw that away. Watch me." Julian's voice was fierce now, desperate. "Anna, I would give up everything I own, every dollar in my bank account, every company and property and investment, if it meant having one more week with you. One more day, one more hour." The words hung between them like a bridge, and Anna felt something crack open in her chest. This man, this powerful, brilliant man, was willing to dismantle his entire life for her, not because she'd asked him to, but because losing her had made him realize that success without love was just expensive emptiness. "What if the articles get worse?" Yana asked, her voice shaking. "What if the attention becomes unbearable? And then we'll handle it together. We'll hire security, limit our public appearances, do whatever it takes to protect what we have." Julian stepped closer, his eyes never leaving her face. "Anna, I can't promise that dating me will be easy. I can't promise that people won't be invasive or cruel or judgmental, but I can promise that I will spend every day trying to make it worth it. I will love you so completely, so devotedly, that whatever we have to endure together will feel like a small price to pay." Anna stared at him, this man who had orchestrated their meeting, who had fallen in love with her from a photograph, who was now offering to reshape his entire existence around loving her. The smart thing would still be to walk away. The safe thing would be to protect her heart from the inevitable complications. But Anna was tired of smart and safe. She was tired of living a careful, controlled life that kept her from the kind of love that could change everything. "I love you," she whispered, the words falling from her lips like a prayer. Julian's face transformed, hope blazing in his eyes. "Anna, I love you, and I'm sorry I was too scared to fight for us. I'm sorry I let fear win." Anna moved closer, close enough to touch his face, to trace the sharp line of his jaw. "If you still want me, if you're willing to try again, then I'm in, all the way in. Whatever comes, we'll face it together." Julian's answer was to kiss her, desperate and hungry and full of 3 weeks' worth of longing. Anna melted into him, her arms wrapping around his neck, her body remembering the perfect fit of being in his arms. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Julian rested his forehead against hers. "Does this mean you're keeping the company?" Anna asked, smiling through her tears. Julian laughed, the sound full of joy and relief. "I suppose I should. Someone has to pay for all those security guards we're going to need." Anna laughed too, giddy with happiness and the relief of being exactly where she belonged. "I have some conditions. Anything. No more buying hotels just to meet me. It's excessive." Noted. "I want to keep working, not giving up my career. To be arm candy? I would never ask you to, though I might commission you to design some book covers for West Capital's annual reports. Make them a little less boring." Anna grinned. "That can be arranged." Julian cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away the tears on her cheeks. "Are you sure about this? Really sure? Because once I have you back, I'm never letting you go again." Anna looked into his eyes, this man who had turned her world upside down with a collision on a staircase, who had shown her that sometimes the most dangerous choices were also the most necessary ones. "I'm sure," she whispered. "I'm absolutely sure." And as Julian kissed her again, under the San Francisco stars, Donna realized that love wasn't about finding someone who fit perfectly into your existing life. It was about finding someone worth building an entirely new life with, its complications and all. 6 months later, the engagement announcement in the San Francisco Chronicle was surprisingly brief. Julian West, CEO of West Capital, and Anna Bennett, acclaimed graphic designer, are pleased to announce their engagement. The couple met at a mutual friend's wedding and plan to marry next spring. What the announcement didn't mention was that Anna had designed their wedding invitations herself, or that Julian had surprised her with a proposal on the same rooftop where they'd found their way back to each other. It didn't mention that they'd hired the best security team money could buy, or that Anna had learned to navigate the occasional paparazzi photo with grace and humor. It certainly didn't mention that. Julian still kept that first photograph of Anna from Natalie's engagement party on his desk, or that Anna had framed the newspaper article that had nearly destroyed them as a reminder that love was always worth fighting for. Some stories, as Anna had learned, were too beautiful to be captured in headlines. Some love was too real to be reduced to gossip, column speculation, and sometimes the most unexpected collisions led to the most extraordinary destinations. The end.